Welcome to this forum for the Southfield City Clerk election. Today is July 13th, 2023. This forum will feature the 4 candidates who have filed for the Southfield City Clerk for a term ending November 17th, 2025. Vote for only one. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. My name is Terry Benjamin, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted national, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our community strong. As a League of Women Voters member, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one that has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning about how you can make a similar impact, I encourage you to pick up some of the League information available here tonight or visit our website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates only, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for this forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. Candidates will answer questions with their views only and not interrupt another candidate. Questions are asked to all candidates and do not single out any one particular candidate. All questions are submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness by League of Women Voters members, Maureen Christensen, Maxine Monshine, and Christine Allen. These ladies will also serve as pages, circulating through the audience with paper and pencils so you can write down your questions. Be sure to turn in your questions to the pages. Our timer is Linda Roney. The format is as followed. All candidates are given 1 minute for opening statements in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless extended by the moderator. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. The candidates for City Clerk are Gabby Grossbard, Janet Jackson, and Barbara Selden. Also on the ballot, but not here tonight, is Jay Reed. As we begin this forum, we ask the audience to turn off all cell phones. Also during the forum, we ask our audience to please remain silent. Let us begin the forum with 1 minute opening statements, beginning with Mr. Grossbard.
Thank you. It's my first time speaking into this microphone. Can I be heard okay? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Gabby Grossbard, and I am a candidate for Southfield City Clerk. Gabi is a short nickname for Gabriel, just so you know where that came from. Most elected official positions are about representation. City Clerk, however, is about public service. It's about competency and efficiency. The job is to direct and execute the responsibilities and services of this office in a reliable, competent, efficient, timely, and friendly manner. I am looking to build on the foundation of the current City Clerk office and personnel with a seamless transition and to move forward in a positive manner. I ask you for your vote because I have the skills, managerial and business experience, the personality, the demeanor, the temperament, the attitude, and the skills to handle the responsibilities of this office. You could learn more about my campaign at votegabi.com. That's votegabi.com. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here and taking the time out to come to hear from us all this evening as we run to become your next Southfield City Clerk. My name is Janet Jackson, and I'm a current county commissioner. I've had the pleasure and I'm grateful to have served this community for the last 14 years on the County Commission. I am looking forward to continuing this journey of public service, running for city clerk in my local city. I want to let everyone know that I realize that the city clerk's position is the eyes and ears of the city, the record keeper of the council, to serve the residents with the services that we offer to help people in their quality of life. Also, the keeper and steward of our elections to make sure that we have fair, accurate, and complete elections. So I just want to take the time to say, please consider voting for me and look at my background in public service, because I'm not new in this community. I love this community. I've been a resident for 35 years in total and raised my children here, and I look forward to working for the city, being our next city clerk. Thank you.
Ms. Selden.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and allowing me an opportunity to tell you why I would like to be candidate for city clerk. First of all, I have lived in the city of Southfield for 30 years. My husband and I have been extremely active in the community for those 30 years. I am a proud veteran, a proud voter, and a proud citizen, and I am so happy to have been a part of the city of Southfield. One of the tenets that I hold inviolate for me is integrity. I believe in honesty and high character. I was raised during a time when John F. Kennedy said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country." So I have been involved in so many different community organizations giving back because so many have given to me. I am very prepared academically, prepared administratively, and prepared managerially to be your next candidate for city clerk. I ask you to.
We now begin the question and answer segment of our forum. Answers will have a 1-minute time limit, and we begin again with Mr. Grossbart. First question. What qualifies you to be city clerk? Have you ever worked as an election inspector?
Is that the entire question?
That's
or-
the entire question.
Okay. It sounded like there might have other parts to it. That's why I checked. Okay, so I have not been elected to any office as of yet in my career, and I do hope that changes this November. City clerk is tasked with directing and executing the election in the manner in which the state legislature sets the rules for. And that is something that I am prepared for because that I am a rule follower. I'm very organized. I have run a business. I have managed large teams of employees and tasks and project management, and I would view this from that same point of view, so the task will be completed under the direction and laws. I don't need to set the rules or invent the wheels. I simply need to follow the directions of the laws of the state as they are on the books and make sure that it is executed properly, and I am absolutely prepared for that.
Ms. Jackson,
Thank you.
same
And
question.
that's
What
a very-
qualifies you to be a city clerk?
Thank you. What qualifies me to be a city clerk, and no, I have never been an election inspector, but I follow election law very closely, and I have participated in running for office numerous times over the years and have family members that have participated as election inspectors. I realize that this position is very, very important as far as checks and balances, and that we have a canvasser's office at the county level that also certifies our election after it's conducted at the city level. And I am familiar with our county clerk and her operation and just the changes in election law that have occurred over the last several years. We have a proposition that was just recently, that was just recently completed that helps us look at early voting and other election laws and election rules in ways that we had never before. So I just want to say that what qualifies me is that I'm very aware of the electoral process. I know that our clerk's office has very well-qualified staffers as well. Thank you.
Ms. Selden, what qualifies you to be city clerk?
Well, to be honest with you, I've never been a city clerk, and I've not had any real experience as a clerk person. However, I did take the opportunity to go to Lansing, travel there, and take a course on what are the responsibilities of a city clerk. So I had an opportunity to learn exactly what is expected of me and what is needed of me. I am not the kind of person who will step up to a position if I don't know anything about it. So I needed to learn for myself exactly what I would need to do. I understand clearly what the keeper of the seal is all about. I understand clearly that the city clerk's office is the gateway to whatever happens within the administration and outside of the administration. But in addition to that, I have been involved in so many community organizations in leadership positions and in administrative positions that it more than qualifies me to be your next city clerk.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, do you have plans for reassuring voters of the integrity of the elections?
Could you repeat that, please?
Do you have plans to reassure voters about the integrity of the election?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Right now in this country, we have had an onslaught of people looking at our electoral process, saying that it's unfair and saying that elections have been stolen, including our last presidential election. So I think it's very pertinent to come out to our residents and community to assure them that Southfield and the state of Michigan has safeguards, and we conducted a very fair presidential election in 2020. Right now, I realize that our voters need reassurance because there's so much apathy as far as just the electoral process, period, especially amongst our young people, our people who are going to colleges, wondering where they're going to place their ballots, engaging them throughout this whole state of Michigan, because we are integral to the next presidential election. And I just want to make sure that our residents have faith, and have faith under me as their next city clerk. Thank you.
Ms. Selden, do you have plans for reassuring voters about the integrity of the election?
Well, first of all, I think that they need to understand what integrity is, and that's talking about honesty, fairness. And if you can't be honest and fair and open and transparent in elections, then you're not going to have the integrity that you need for an election. Of course, the first thing that I will want to do is to make sure that the election inspectors are educated and prepared and ready for all the nuances and changes that will come down as it relates to how we perform our elections here in the city of Southfield. Second, I would like to make sure that the community is educated and aware of what is the election and what it is all about, what is expected. I'm hoping that whatever comes down from Lansing, that we'll be able to execute all of those things that are socially, open up our elections so that everyone will be able to have a vote, especially those who may be disabled, those who may be veterans and unable to get their votes, those who may be, and for whatever reason, unable to get to the center, maybe senior citizens, those who are not.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, do you
Yeah.
have any plans for reassuring voters about the integrity of the election?
I do have a plan, and it's rather simple. I agree with Ms. Jackson that there's been a lot of shade thrown on elections, specifically after the 2020 election, and that is something that is not exactly acceptable for our election system. Specifically here in Southfield, you know, let's be frank about why there's even an election right now. It certainly didn't help, so we have to dig ourselves out of a deeper hole. My plan is simple: transparency. People will not question something that they can see and they understand, and they can see that it runs smoothly. And everything on the election process under my clerk office will be about transparency. People will be able to see how many, that we staffed the polls properly, that we supplied the polls properly, that we're making it available for all voters to easily vote and access, and if there are any questions, transparency. People do not question something that they can see and question and understand, and that is my plan.
Thank you. Next question. How do you see the duties of the clerk as it relates to council? Ms. Selden, you want to begin with that?
Well, I think it's very important. There are duties and responsibilities externally, and that's for our community, for our citizens. And there are duties and responsibility internally, and that's for the administration. First of all, I think it's going to be important to make sure that I handle all of the duties and responsibilities for our city council, which including making sure they have their records and their agendas, and making sure that all of their notes are recorded properly and signed properly. Second of all, I think it's really important that whatever comes through the city clerk's office as it relates to things that need signatures, that I'm prepared to provide that signature as long as the information is ethical and proper. And also, thirdly, I think it's really important that I work closely with the city council and the city council and its members to be sure that all of the
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, how do you see the duties of the clerk as it relates to the council?
The clerk does not have an active voice or a vote on the council. What the clerk's job with the council is of assistance and support, and to provide whatever they need when it comes to records, when it comes to record keepings, when it comes to scheduling, everything that they need in support, whether it's the entire council or individually. And if I may add also all other administrative departments, the clerk's job is to provide support and assistance in anything that they require and ask. And that is something that I fully understand from the business world, where you rely on other departments, they better come through for you, otherwise everything starts to stagnate.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, how do you see the duties of the clerk as it relates to council?
The clerk is the clerk of the council. Actually, the clerk is responsible for preparation of agendas for the council, to make sure that agendas are posted in a timely fashion and allow for items to be added to the agenda, departments that are related to the agenda as presenters are in line to be able to come and present to the council meetings. The council, the clerk also makes sure that the meetings for the councils, including their committee meetings, are run in an organized fashion, and that the agenda items are presented in a way that anyone who wants to speak to them can. Also, the clerk takes the minutes for the council and it is the record keeper of the council, and makes sure that those minutes are accurate for the public's consumption, that people that don't come to the meetings get to read the minutes and stay abreast of council matters. The city clerk also is the person that comes and administers certain duties as far as oaths, and just helps the council with their day-to-day jobs as city council members.
Thank you. Ms. Selden,
yes.
how many years will you commit to keeping the job if elected?
As many as will be allowed. Right now, we understand that there's a potential for the next 2 years. After that, there will be an amendment suggesting that maybe the city clerk's position will be a position of appointment. So from now until the next 2 years, anyway, I hope to be able to sustain with excellence the job of city clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Gabbard. Grossbard, I'm sorry.
It's okay. The current term on the ballot is through November 17, 2025. So I'm certainly committing to that. After that, depends on with what happens with the ballot initiative that Barb just mentioned. It's going to depend whether there will be another election, or if the city manager or someone else will be able to hire someone. If there will be an election, I do hope to run for that, for re-election at that point. And if there's a position that the city manager will hopefully he'll be impressed enough with me after 2 years that he would hire me to stay on.
Ms. Jackson?
Thank you. What I want to just say right now, the responses to that question are very accurate that my two opponents just gave. Yes, it is just going to be a 2-year position to fulfill a term. But at this point, I am prepared to serve as long as I humanly can or as long as the public desires me to. If it stays an elected position, I will plan to continue to run if at that time the citizens are satisfied with the job that I'm doing. And if it becomes an appointed position, then hopefully the job that I've done, I plan on going to become a certified municipal clerk, and just make sure that I have all the skills and abilities to fulfill the desired position as far as an appointed position. Thank you.
Start with Mr. Gabbard. Mr. Grossbard, I am so sorry. Mr. Grossbard, what will you do to engage the community and increase voter registration?
Okay, so first of all, I sometimes have a hard time with my last name also. Feel free to just call me Gabi. It's okay. Okay. How do I intend? I am full belief that it should be as easiest and simple and most accessible for any eligible voter to cast a ballot and to vote, whether it's in a primary, whether it's in an off-year election, whether it's in the biggest election, which is the presidential. It shouldn't be complicated or difficult, or residents should not have to jump through hoops. Clearly, some elections are more popular than others, and there are longer lines or more voters, and that is something that the clerk, within their position, should do everything they can to ease that. However, even in the busier elections, I am a firm believer that every eligible voter should be voting in every election, and they should get registered and they should vote.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Well, I really feel like voter engagement is very important, especially in this community. We have a large demographic of voters that tend to not vote in primary elections, especially. So we need to really educate our voters starting at our younger ages. We have groups in this community that go out and they do mock elections, and we have to make sure that we engage those groups and organizations as well. This is not just an in-house type of effort. We have to make sure that we engage our community and public and make use of the groups whose work is to promote the vote. I really would like to see different types of activities geared toward different voters, young voters, senior voters, as far as accessibility, talking about the Voters' Rights Act, getting the unions on board as far as groups. You know, there's ways that we can organize based upon different demographics. Thank you.
Ms. Selden? What will you do to engage the community and increase voter registration?
I think I would do similar kinds of things. First of all, we need to understand that in the city of Southfield, we are the center of it all. In Southfield, we are heavily senior citizens. Our student population is dropping. Many of our older adults are not computer literate, and they're not comfortable with doing things so much online. I think it's important to have a plethora of different ways in which our citizens may be able to engage so that they can get their voting in. I think that we should, of course, have open voting. I think we should extend our voting days so that everyone can have an opportunity. Those who work may not be able to get off work in time to get to the polls on time. We should be able to have absentee balloting for everyone all of the time for no reason. And we need to make sure that we get our students educated so that
yes.
they may be able to also engage in the voting process.
Thank you. I want to remind all our candidates to please speak up louder so the folks in the back of the room can hear you. Who is next?
Me.
Yes, Ms. Jackson. What would you do to encourage younger citizens to vote? Sort of along the same lines of the
Sure,
question.
that is very similar to our last question. Like I stated earlier, we have to really address confusion around voting, and younger citizens, and even before they become voters' age, start with middle school students and teach them the power of the vote, organize them in ways to help volunteer. Volunteerism is one of the key components to the electoral process. Our voting poll workers can begin working at the age of 16, and that's prior to the legal voting age. So that's engagement at the onset. They market to young people like they market cars to young people because they know they're going to be the future buyers. So what we have to do is make sure that we engage the younger voter where they are to be part of this process, and they will help also to engage their parents to vote. So thank you.
Ms. Selden, what would you do to engage younger voters?
Well, first of all, I think the city clerk needs to get outside the office. I think she should make sure herself and her staff, if possible, to get out into the schools. And I think that we need to develop, just as we do with many issues that impact our children, we get into their communities, we get into their schools, we find out where they are, and we educate them in order for them to understand the need for them to be good citizens, and a good citizen actually votes. We have to do that through the school systems, through the PTSA organization, the Parent Teacher Students Association. We need to find where the students are at the youth organizations. We need to actually plan a way to teach them exactly how to vote through demonstration, and we can get, again, outside the city clerk's office into the locations where the students are, educating them about the importance of voting and exactly how the process works.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, how would you, I got it right.
Yeah, you did.
How would you encourage younger citizens to vote?
I would put an emphasis on outreach. I think that I agree with Ms. Selden that the clerk should get out of the office and into the community and visit with schools, with high schools, with community colleges in the area. But perhaps also, and I don't know if this is done or if this is technically possible, but have students come through not just the clerk office, but all City Hall, just to see their government in action, what it does. And I don't think it's so much teaching the students how to vote. I think it's to teach them the importance of their vote. Every vote is important. There's no shortage of examples of elections that were decided by single-digit votes. Every vote matters. The power of each vote, that is something that can be portrayed and be given over to every young student, middle-aged student, and even hardworking adults in their younger years, you know, the 20s, the 30s, those are the years that you work the hardest. You got to make time for vote. We always make time for what's important. Voting is important. Let's teach them to make time for it.
Thank you. Ms. Selden, if you are elected clerk, can we trust that you will stand with the will of the people and not cast a shadow of doubt on the result?
There are 4 things that I stand for. One is transparency. So I want to be sure that my office is open, honest, fair, secure, that everyone, all of the citizens can come into the office and they can get efficient service through me. That's number 1. Second of all, I believe in advocacy. I'm going to advocate for my citizens, for the residents, for the city of Southfield. Third of all, I believe in integrity. You have to be honest. There is no doubt about it. If there's any hint of dishonesty, then I lose my community. And fourth of all, I have to make sure that I show accountability. If I'm not accountable, then how can they be trustful of me? So those are the 4 important principles that I would utilize in terms of keeping my community. When they bond with me and I have those principles showing love and kindness, that we can have a bond that can't be broken.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard,
Can you please repeat the question for me?
if you are elected clerk, can we trust that you will stand with the will of the people and not cast a shadow of doubt on the result?
Absolutely. When I'm elected clerk, I will be transparent and accessible and follow the rules of the people. The clerk's position does not have any room to dictate or decide or make rules for myself. The position of clerk is to follow rules that the city council established and voted on, that the legislature voted on, anything that's in law, any directive from the mayor, any directive. The clerk doesn't get to make their own rules. The clerk has to follow the rules. I am a rule follower. I am a rule administrator. I always make sure that my staff, my team, my people follow rules in a positive manner. And that's how the clerk office will be run under my leadership.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson,
Thank you.
if
Could
you are
repeat?
elected clerk, can we trust that you will stand with the will of the people and not cast a shadow of doubt on the result?
That sounds like an oath to me. Basically, yes, that's what the position is for, is to stand with the rule of the people, to safeguard the rule of the people. As I stated earlier, we just came out of a period of election deniers and distrust, and the city clerk's position is the one that maintains integrity and honesty, as it's been put out here already, and making sure that the rules are followed. Because there are set rules. We don't make the rules. We don't get to bend the rules. We don't get to change results. And I don't think that ever really has occurred to affect an election in this city. And so I know that I have a very, very intelligent staff that with a lot of experience in that office to help assure that those checks and balances are maintained. So yes, as a city clerk, I will make sure that I uphold the standard and the will of the people so their voices can be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Gabbard, you're first. Mr. Grossbard, you're first. In the November election, ballot proposal number 2 is a charter amendment to change the Southfield city clerk from an elected to an appointed position. Do you support this proposal?
In the upcoming election?
That's what it says in November 2023 election. Ballot proposal 2 is a charter amendment to change the Southfield city clerk from an elected to an appointed position. Do you support this proposal? It sounds like you hadn't heard about it.
No, I've heard about it.
Oh,
I've
okay.
given it a lot of, I wasn't sure if you were asking about proposal 2 from 22, which
Oh,
changed election laws
sure.
also. That's why the proposal 2 number is what threw me off.
Sorry.
I've been giving this proposal a lot of thoughts, and there's a lot of positive to both aspects of it. I definitely know that the city council is for it. I know that the mayor is for it. I know that I'm for it. But I also know that there are people who are against it, and in some ways, I'm also against it. So I am still torn about it. I do think that putting the hiring of a clerk on the one hand in the hand of the residents, that's what democracy is about, let the people vote. On the other hand, I also think that putting, since other cities have it as a hired position and not an elected position, it's not like we're looking to break any grounds here in Southfields if we do it. I definitely don't oppose this proposal, so I'm still thinking about it.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Thank you. And this is an issue that is very layered, and I've been thinking about it as well. Being a city clerk, you have a position almost where you need to remain impartial because it looks as though it could be self-serving. And I don't want to come and make this job a self-serving position, but I want to also make sure that the will of the people, just like we just spoke about, that the will of the people is heard, and that we as a community, we've gone back and forth on several voting initiatives. Should we have primary elections or should we not? Does it represent a level of voter suppression in people's minds? Do we need to make sure that we allow the voters to have a voice, even though the mayor and the council is for this appointment process. I'm not sure at this time. We'll see as we walk this down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Selden, in November, ballot proposal 2 is a charter amendment to change the Southfield City Clerk from an elected to an appointed position. Do you support this proposal?
Well, I did a little research on that, and what I discovered is the majority of the city clerk offices are appointed, along with the treasurer of the city. I also discovered that in order to run for city clerk, all you need is to live in the city for 1 year and to be a registered voter. Then I took a look at what the jobs and the responsibilities of the city clerk entails, and I discovered that if anyone with 1 year, okay, and a person who votes, I don't think that tells us exactly what we need for our city clerk. The job is too important for that, so yes, I would support the appointment of the city clerk.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, you have the next question. Are you prepared to implement the changes per proposal 2, promote the vote?
Thank you. That's a very good question, because Proposal 2 is really going to open up the ability for a lot of people to vote that maybe had not had the opportunity during the regular absentee ballot process. Proposal 2, if the audience is not aware, is legislation that was sponsored by our Congress within our state. And what it does is it allows for 9 days of early voting versus just absentee voting, no reason early voting. People can come in, and we're going to be combined, have a combined voting center with the city of Oak Park. And folks will be able to come and cast their ballot just like regular voting day, tabulated that day and everything. If it's incorrect, a chance to correct it, which does not all the time occur with absentee balloting. So what I want to do is make sure that this proposal is enacted properly as far as just supervising our combined polling place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Selden, are you prepared to implement the changes per proposal 2?
Yes, I think that it is really important that any legislation that comes down, that the city clerk has to be prepared to make those implementations. So first thing we need to understand is how important it is for everyone to be able to vote, and that no one is denied to vote for any particular reason. So opening up our voting for 9 days, I think, is an excellent idea. When you think about it, if you're at work and you have to hustle to get to the voting polls, which closes at 8 o'clock, and you can't get here, it kind of interferes with things. I can see where we can open up on weekends. I can see where we can increase our absentee balloting even more. And as the days are open, everyone can have ease of voting for secure, safe voting for everyone. So I think it's a good idea to implement those things.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, are you prepared to implement the changes per proposal 2?
Absolutely. Proposal 2 mandates that every voting municipality throughout the entire state starts allowing the 9 early days, which starts the Saturday before the election day, a week and a half before, and is open every day through the Sunday before election day at the primary for the next presidential elections. They did encourage municipalities to pilot it earlier than that, and I do believe that our clerk's office is piloting it this November as well. And I commend them for that, and this is something that will be a big success and will allow voters to cast a ballot a lot easier, something that I'm a firm believer of, and anything that we can do within the law to allow people to cast a ballot without putting them through too many hardships or through jumping through too many loopholes is something we should be doing. So the answer to the question is yes.
Thank you. Ms. Selden, tell us what you currently know about election law.
What do I currently know about the election laws?
That's what it says. Tell
I
us
think
what you
that's a very
currently know.
generic,
I'm sorry.
I think that's a very generic question. Okay, but I do know that as far as our election laws are concerned, that they have to be open, that our laws have to be those that make sure that everyone has opportunity, that no one is denied any laws or any rights, and that just with the Elliott Larson's Act, for example, the Civil Rights Act, we have that right to the liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that all involves the right to vote. And with the election laws, it should be clear that everyone should have that right. So our Voting Laws Act states for sure that everyone over the age of 18 should be able to, whatever their condition is, to vote as long as they are registered voters and citizens within the United States.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard,
Yes.
tell us what you currently know about election law.
Election law gets written and voted into law in the state legislature and signed into law by the governor. This happens every election cycle. Election laws have been going on for many years. As far as the clerk is concerned, the clerk does not get to write law. The clerk does not get to follow laws they like or laws they don't like. The clerk's job and role within every election is to direct and execute the election under the laws of the state at the time of that election. That is what I intend to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, tell us what you currently know about election law.
Well, election law is very complex because there's a lot of misunderstanding, and there's certain types of voters that don't really know about their rights to vote. Incarcerated folks and people that have had felonies are not sure of their rights to vote. And election law determines and guides and gives people the information that let them know that they should vote and that they have the ability to vote. The Voters' Rights Act of 1965 was an act that really helped us look at discrimination in voting. And right now, as we look at our highest court, certain rights are being chipped away at. And we have to make sure that we look at voter suppression as far as election law and make sure that everyone has the ability to cast their votes in fair and uniform ways. So one thing about election law, it's ever evolving. Thank you.
Mr. Grossbard, what will be your 3 top priorities as Southfield City Clerk?
At heart, I am a public servant, and the clerk's job is to be a public servant. So my number 1 priority is going to be to provide the services that the responsibility of the clerk's office is to provide to people in a competent, efficient, transparent manner. I would like to expand the services currently offered by the clerk's office. Some of it it's simple things. For example, right now, if you want an absentee ballot, you got to go to the state website. It is not available on the Southfield website. I would like for it to be available on the Southfield City website instead of getting redirected to the state, if possible. I do intend to provide death and birth certificates in a timely manner, and all services and licenses and records in a timely manner. And most important of all, transparency and efficiency in a friendly manner is going to be key to me and my personnel. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
What are my 3
will
top?
be your 3 top priorities as Southfield City Clerk?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Transparency definitely will be one of my top priorities. And I don't know if everyone is aware here, but FOIA requests are becoming more and more prevalent amongst governmental bodies. And I want to make sure that our staff and our council people are aware of the FOIA process, making sure that the Open Meetings Act and FOIA process is adhered to. Also, innovation and technology. At the county, we use a system called Civic Clerk, and a lot of our processes have been streamlined through automation. Minutes are available right after meetings, and changes can be made in ways that are much more technology-based to help us work with strategies for continuous improvement. Also, more information about the services that we offer, community engagement. We offer licenses, and right now we're in an age of entrepreneurship that we can help promote in the city clerk's office. So
Thank you.
those are three of the many goals.
Ms. Selden, what will be your 3 top priorities as Southfield City Clerk?
But my first priority will be to make sure that I maintain the integrity of the city records as a gatekeeper. That's my first priority. My second priority would be to provide a user-friendly atmosphere and access for my citizens to the city clerk's office. My third priority would be to coordinate the activities of the city council, those, the legislative committees, and the council boards, to be sure that for them everything is done properly and in order. And I guess mostly I want to provide transparency of the rules and roles and responsibilities of the city clerk. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, you have this question first. Considering the legal issues with the previous city clerk, how do you intend to bring trust and integrity back to the clerk's office?
Thank you. That question really, to me, is a little bit loaded, because I don't feel as though trust and integrity have been breached. With the legal issues with the previous city clerk, almost every public official, including myself, was in support of her. We went to the courthouse and we stood up for her. And I want to say that I realized that it was an error and omission versus an intentional error to change the election, which did not occur. And so to restore, the word restore, our city clerk's office has been under a great operation for many, many, many years. And so I want to say maintain, not restore. I don't feel as though our public looks at our city clerk's office with a side eye or thinks that any intentional wrongdoing has taken place or occurred in this office.
Thank you. Ms. Selden, considering the legal issues with the previous city clerk, how do you intend to bring trust and integrity back to the clerk's office?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not totally familiar with exactly what happened with the former city clerk, but I do know this much. Whenever there is a breach in any office, in order to get the trust of your people back, you're going to have to make some changes. One of the things that you're going to have to do is get out there and educate. Talk with your community. Let them know of the changes that you're going to make. Help them to understand whatever happened and ensure them that that won't be happening under your leadership. This is where transparency comes in place, and this is where it is important for you to keep the citizens aware of every change that you're making and everything that you're doing. And then at the same time, internally, you're going to have to make sure that you keep close with the state and with the election officials to make sure that they understand you too are trying to keep the integrity of the city in place.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, considering the legal issues with the previous city clerk, how do you intend to bring trust and integrity back to the clerk's office?
I do not know much about what happened, what she was accused of, what she took a plea for, or any of that. But the fact is that from a public perception of the residents, the reputation of that office is damaged and it does need to be rebuilt. And I intend to do that. And I think it's important to do that. It's important to address the residents' questions and acknowledge and build on that. I am a firm believer that people do not question what they can see in front of them. If the clerk office, if the processes is efficient and transparent and open, and it clears the checks and balances that are in place, there are checks and balances in place, and if we publicize that we've cleared those, I think that it will go a long way to restore the confidence and the reputation of our current city clerk's office.
Thank you. Ms. Selden, to your knowledge, has Southfield ever had a voter suppression problem?
To my knowledge, no, I have been a voting member of Southfield since 1993, and I have not been familiar with any voter suppression. And I'm grateful to know that I have found that it's been pretty easy to vote, and I've not heard of any complaints whatsoever about the process. Mostly what you hear is, I'm standing in line, it's taking too long, I wish these things could be better, I can't get there in the timely fashion, but that is not so much suppression as it is following the laws that come down to us from the state. So I would probably say, if you're looking at that in terms of suppression, then there's suppression everywhere, not just in the city of Southfield alone.
Mr. Grossbard.
I am what we call in our circles a schmoozer. I'm out there in the grocery store, I'll start talking to people. I'm out in the post office, I'll talk to people. And this is one of the questions I ask people, because in the news you hear about voter suppression. I've never seen it. I've never heard of it here in Southfield, but I'm only I have access to my own experiences. So I do talk to people and I do ask them. And I do agree with Ms. Selden that long lines and delays sometimes can give off that impression. And that is why I am a big fan of the proposal to that passed, and before that, the absentee ballot for everybody. I vote absentee now just because that it's available and I can, and it makes it so much easier for me. And now with the 9 days of early voting in person, and another thing that I like about that our city clerk office does, you have for about 30 days in-person absentee voting. You could walk up to the window, they will issue you an absentee ballot on the spot, and you could fill it out in one of those booths and drop it right into the envelope. We make it easy and available for people to vote here in this city. I don't see any voter suppression. If there is, please let me know.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. And that's something else that really is dependent upon who you talk to, because there isn't like an overt voter suppression orchestrated problem in this city, as we know. But, you know, sometimes the change in voting locations, where they may have been popular locations in the past, or maybe have solicited a number of elected officials from one area. Leonard School back in the day used to be a very popular voting poll, and we had a lot of elected officials come out of that subdivision. So I think that sometimes when we make decisions based upon where voting polls are located, it could suppress the vote. Maybe not intentionally, but it could have the result. A voter suppression problem per se is just something that we always have to safeguard against, and we always have to offer our residents the opportunity to cast a ballot when it's efficient and economically favorable for our city.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard, what is the difference between absentee voting and early voting, and what are your thoughts about it?
Absentee voting is essentially a ability to get the ballot by mail. You have to fill out an application, you get the ballot in the mail, you fill it out, you could drop it off in the clerk's office in person or mail it in, and it sits there in a secure box and it gets counted and processed on election day and tabulated at that point. Early voting is where you get to show up in person, and it's as if you show up to the poll on voting day. The new law is that you'll have a minimum of 9 days for 8 hours a day each, and it has to include 2 weekends. So essentially Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday again, and then Tuesday is the actual election day for people to be able to show up, fill out their ballot, run it through the tabulator, If there's an issue, they can correct it on the spot and put it through again. So it's an in-person early vote. It's a poll that shows up for 9 days versus mailing it in.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, what is the difference between absentee voting and early voting, and what are your thoughts about it?
Well, basically, from my understanding, absentee voting was normally given to seniors or people that were out of town that weren't able to cast their ballot on election day. And there were certain reasons that it could occur. Early voting is no reason has to be given. It's just an opportunity to vote prior to the election. As we know, Prop 2 gives us the provision to vote 9 days before the election at a combined polling location. Southfield and Oak Park is going to have one, as well as there'll be a super voting center in the city of Pontiac where people can go before the election, not giving any reason whatsoever than their convenience or their desire. So that's the difference.
Thank you. Mrs. Selden, what's the difference between absentee voting and early voting, and what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I agree with my opponents on absentee versus early voting. First of all, the absentee voter is someone who, for whatever reason, is unable to get to the polls on the day that they're required for voting, and it usually was that one day, and they have an opportunity to fill out paperwork, send it in, they'll receive their ballot, and then they can fill that out and they can send it back in. In open voting, the 9 days that we were talking about, and over the weekends provide a greater opportunity for those people who not only can walk into the polls and vote, but also for the absentee balloter to, if they want to come to the polls and to give their vote. So it's just an easy, efficient way for all people to have an opportunity to exercise their right to vote.
Thank you. This concludes our time for questions. All questions that were turned in have now been answered. The candidates will now have 1 minute to make a closing statement in reverse order of opening statements, beginning with Ms. Selden.
Well, I am not running for city clerk for any personal selfish reasons. I'm running for city clerk because of my love and my passion for my city. None of the candidates here on this podium today are really qualified to be city clerk. However, I did go to Lansing and take a class that will give me the information that I need to know about what it is to be the city clerk. I do not go through these next 2 years as leader selfishly. I'm here for the people. I am a delegate. I'm a unifier. I have integrity. I advocate for my city. I am an administrator through my job, and I have done much management. I feel that I am qualified for this position, and I hope I can have your vote on August the 8th. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank everybody that's here tonight, because without your participation in this process, it does not work. I want to say that I cannot wait for the opportunity to be elected to city clerk for my city, my beloved city of Southfield. I've been a public service here for almost 15 years, and integrity is no question as far as I'm concerned. I will bring a level of expertise and commitment to this job that will make our city proud. I see the women and men, or mostly women, that work in a city clerk's office. I know there's a qualified staff there. I'm a servant leader. I will work alongside the staff to make sure that we deliver great customer service, service that we experienced pre-COVID, because post-COVID, a lot of things have fallen off, and this city clerk's office has not. And I want to maintain that service and maintain the integrity of our elections in this position. So please vote for me. for your next Southfield City Clerk.
Thank you. Mr. Grossbard.
I'd like to start off by thanking the audience for attending and paying attention tonight. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting together this wonderful forum and the opportunity for us to have this open, candid conversation. I do want to conclude by saying, by stating again that most elected official positions are about representing the citizens and the residents. The city clerk is not about representation. It's about public service. It's about competency and efficiency. The job is to direct and execute the responsibilities and services of the office in a reliable, competent, and efficient, timely, and friendly manner. I ask you to trust me with your vote, and I will do you proud, because that I have the expertise through my skills, my business and managerial experience. I have the personality, the demeanor, the temperament, the attitude, the leadership skills to handle the responsibilities of this office. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience, the candidates, Southfield 15 Cable, or Southfield Cable 15, I'm sorry, and especially Gary Watts and Jim Hall for making this forum possible. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates, visit 411.org for our voter guide. Rebroadcast of this forum will be on the League of Women Voters website, the Southfield Cable 15, and YouTube. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned businesses and citizens. Our membership is open to women and men over the age of 16. This presentation is copyrighted 2023 by the League of Women Voters and can only be shown in its entirety. All rights are reserved. Last of all, remember to vote in November. Thank you.
August.